In this video we are going to take a closer look at the stylish Primaris Storm Speeder variants, the Hailstrike, Hammerstrike and Thunderstrike. First we will take a look at their datasheets, loadouts and how they compare to each other's. Then we will go through how to include them in a Deathwatch army and whether there is any point doing so at all. Spoiler alert, there has been an appearance at a tournament not so long ago. Lastly, there will be some modeling recommendations and a quick wrap up.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Hammer and I will be guiding you through this video.
Before we dive right into the datasheets, I think it is worth mentioning that the Primaris Storm Speeders won out on one thing for sure: the chapter approved releases. So far, the Storm Speeders count among the few units that got discounted twice in a row in 9th edition. Looking back at the initial Space Marine Codex release, the Hailstrike used to cost 150 points, the Hammerstrike 170 and the Thunderstrike 175. Chapter approved 2021 MK2 then dropped them down to the 135 to 160 points range, just for chapter approved 2022 early this year to give them a discount once again, to which we will get in just a moment. I suppose GW just didn't sell enough kits, but were these points adjustments enough? Starting with the Storm Speeder Hailstrike, the cheapest of the three variants at 125 points, we have a movement of 16, 3+ weapon and ballistic skill, strength 5, toughness 6, 10 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 7 and a 3-up save. The movement, ballistic skill and the attack stick rate, though the latter is pretty much irrelevant. Compared to the regular firstborn land speeders, the profile of the Primaris version is a little odd, as they are giving them additional wounds and strength, but keeping them at toughness 6. Given that the model is quite huge and easy to target, this certainly does not add to their survivability. Rocking a Fragstorm grenade launcher, onslaught Gatling cannon and a twin Iron Hail heavy stubber, this variant goes for volume of fire at low strength and AP, making it decent at reliably clearing chaff and weaker horde-style units in general. The Storm Speeder also benefits from the recent addition of the Armor of Contempt, though as with all vehicles outside of Dreadnoughts, they don't get core, leaving them with little synergy outside of getting buffed by a Tech Marine. Moving on to the second variant, the Hammerstrike at 145 points. This one shares the exact same profile as the Hailstrike, but with a different weapon loadout. Hammerstrike missile launcher, Crackstorm grenade launcher and the Melta destroyer, with the latter benefiting from the 9th edition Melta rules granting additional damage at half range. I think the main issue with this variant is that in order to really get the most out of that Melta loadout, you'll have to get very close to a target, at which point a toughness 6 model with 10 wounds and no additional protection just isn't going to survive. Then last but not least, we have the Thunderstrike for 150 points, only 5 above the previous variant, which compared to the other two comes with a ballistic skill of 2+. Looking at the loadouts, Storm Fury missiles, Thunderstrike last talents and the twin Icarus rocket pod, the heavy guns are low shot count and therefore more swingy than say the loadout of the Hailstrike, so that 2+ is really going to come in handy. Another benefit is that the weapons have a decent range, meaning this variant can more likely act as a gun platform shooting from a distance, assuming there are decent firing lanes. Generally speaking, I think I would go either for this variant as a long-range fire support or the cheap Hailstrike as more of a mobility and chaff clearing pick. I just don't think that the Hammerstrike has the kind of survivability required for its specific loadout. Either way, I think the main issue with these is indeed their survivability. Having said that, how can we best make use of them in the Deathwatch? Perhaps a bit unsurprisingly, as with the other vehicles outside of Dreadnoughts, there is little synergy to be found here. By going for a Storm Speeder, we are giving up the Army of Renown, which is the currently most competitive way to play Deathwatch. As I was already mentioning a bit in my latest Deathwatch Takeaways episode, I think at this point we really have been streamlined into this one way to play Deathwatch focused on kill teams, which is an amazing thematic fit for the army, don't get me wrong, but it also locks out the large majority of datasheets and automatically makes the might still be competitive datasheets obsolete. Nonetheless, if you are planning to go for a non-Army of Renown list anyway, I think the Storm Speeder is worth considering, and we can for instance give them wound rerolls through our Xenos Hunter chapter tactics. Having said all that, there has indeed been a single appearance of the Storm Speeder at the Confrontation Redemption back in March, an event with 36 players over 5 rounds. Martin Waller ended up on rank 13, going 3-2 with Deathwatch. He ran a fairly casual list with several kill teams, a single Redemptor Dreadnought, an Invader ATV with a multi-Melta, a Storm Speeder Thunderstrike and a Chorus Blackstar. Link to both the tournament coverage and its full list is in the description. As I was previously mentioning, I think the Thunderstrike is one out of 2 sensible picks, and I think just keeping this one at a distance and trying to get some good shots off can somewhat compensate for its poor survivability. Since then, we also got the Armor of Contempt rule, which I don't think changes all that much for its survivability, but still, on a unit like this, every little extra helps. Lastly, let's take a look at some modeling recommendations. The good news is that a single Storm Speeder can be made fully exchangeable between all 3 variants with the help of magnets, but a word of warning here, the process is very time consuming as there are a lot of weapon loadouts to consider. For the turret part, my approach was not to glue the turret itself, as it fits without the glue just fine, then use magnets to exchange the rocket pods and the machine guns, and then on the rocket pods again use magnets to change between the 2 different payloads. Underneath the wings, there is a single rocket to be magnetized, pretty standard this one. Furthermore, we have the 2 sponsons on the side, where I decided to magnetize both the sponsons themselves, as well as the 3 different loadouts. Lastly, there is also the gun sticking out of the frontal hull. Again, this one is pretty standard with a single magnet for each gun. In addition to the magnets, I also installed some LEDs, making this a super time consuming assembly, but I just figured I will play this model so rarely, and I sure as hell don't want to buy any further copies. In fact, GW, if you can hear me, please don't ever make this one competitive to the point where everyone will be running 3 of them in every list. For anyone familiar with my history of dreadnoughts, I think now that I said this, the chance of it to actually happen increased significantly. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at the 3 Primaris Storm Speeder variants and what challenges they face in the Deathwatch in particular. Aside from having to drop the Army of Renown, and with that the most competitive way to play Deathwatch, I think the Storm Speeders have poor survivability for their points still, even though these guys got a points decrease twice, and the Hammerstrike in particular really suffers from a loadout that requires it to get close up. On the other hand, the Hailstrike is decently cheap for both mobility and clearing lighter targets, while the Thunderstrike can be kept at a distance, firing its heavy-hitting weapons at a good range with a ballistic skill of 2+. This variant we have also seen pop up at a tournament back in March, where Martin Waller achieved a respectable 3-2. Perhaps a bit of a niche pick, especially in the Deathwatch, but we can at least give them some wound rerolls, and the good news is also that a single model can be made fully exchangeable with all loadouts through the help of magnets if you are willing to put in the work. So that's it for the Primaris Storm Speeders in the Deathwatch. Have you guys been running these? And if yes, with what variant? Or have you been indeed crazy enough to go full magnets as I did? And if you are currently not playing them, what would it take for you to finally play one? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.